Peyton, nice to see you again on this beautiful Sunday. This time with a quote by Frank Lloyd Wright, where he says, study nature, love nature, stay close to nature. It will never fail you. Do you have any ideas on this? And if yes, do you want to share them with
Maybe one or two, brother. Good to be
us?
back. I love this
Wonderful.
quote. And Frank Lloyd Wright is somebody that really brought a lot of the principles of nature and obviously learned from nature in his own practice of architecture. And to me, the value of nature in part for us as humans living in 2024 has to do with alignment. We are obviously animals. A lot of us forget that we're not robots. We're not computers. We're not calculators. We're not ChatGPT. We're literally animals. We're made of meat. We're made of skin and water, and we flow. And we have this biological nature that is deeply interwoven into every cell in our body. We did not grow up in this world of cities and cars and concrete and metal and straight lines and boxes and air conditioning and silence and this implied feeling of status quo and stability and flatness to our world. We evolved for millions of years in a natural environment where every day we had to go ensure survival, explore, navigate, and directly interact with our environment and as a part of that environment, as opposed to something that stands apart, separate, disconnected from the world and manipulates it. Rather, something that had to negotiate, interact with, and live in a relationship with nature around us. When it stormed, we had to find shelter. When we got hungry, we had to go find food. When there were other things that were hungry, we had to make sure we didn't become food. And so life and existence for most of our history, and just like every other animal that still exists today, was a constant dance as opposed to something that we wanted to put in a box and control and try to pretend that nothing, that volatility doesn't affect us and will live forever. And now we're in a totally different environment than the environment in which our brains evolved and our bodies evolved. And so many of us are tempted to forget who we really are and to think that we are computers by nature, something to control, manipulate, to automate, and and rather we are still, even despite the fact that I'm wearing clothes and that I'm sitting in a house and that I can drive a car and that one is in my driveway, I still am an animal. And if I pretend that I'm not and just force myself to live only in cages and never connect with it, in my experience and from what I can see in many other people, it can lead to a an underlying fundamental sense or implied under the surface subconscious sense of misalignment. And when you look at humans and you compare us to other apex predators, because that is what we are, we're apex predators, we are at the top of the food chain. If you look at a human walking around and you look at a lion walking around, they tend to embody much different energy. You never see a lion that is walking around just tripping with anxiety and worried about what other lions are thinking about him right now, or stressed out about what's going to happen tomorrow, or trying to accumulate as much possessions as he can and feeling constantly dissatisfied with what he has and completely engulfed in thoughts and rumination about the past and the future and trying to tell a story to himself about his identity or what he's lacking or what he's missing or what he wishes was different or what he doesn't like and is crippled by this neurotic pattern of self-concern and storytelling within his own mind. Whereas with humans, you can see once again an apex predator at the top of the food chain. I go outside and nothing in my state can eat me that's outside. But yet, still, I walk around and I see humans that are absolutely neurotic. Within their mind, they're contracted and living in fear. and in a fundamental sense of contraction and misalignment, and not living a fully flourishing psychological life. And I do believe that a big part of this is we are in such a different environment. If you have a dog and you put it in a cage forever, it's also not going to be vibing forever. If you have a lion and you put it in a cage forever, it's not going to be vibing forever. And the thing with us as Homo sapiens is we have in part built our own cage with this civilized world. We have in part put these immense constraints on what it is like to exist as us, and largely in the service of safety and security and predictability and eliminating volatility, the desire to control, the desire to be the master of what is around us. And obviously, many of these things are good. There's lots of comforts, there's lots of pleasures, there's increases in conveniences and life expectancy, and we have running water and indoor plumbing, which is sweet. But at the same time, if we don't connect with who we really are, if we don't connect with the natural environment that every cell in our body feels aligned within, and rather we're in this artificial world of waking up to an alarm clock every day and going and sitting in rectangular spaces every day with a roof over our head and not feeling the wind rushing across our skin, not feeling the sun blast down on us, not feeling the volatility of the natural world in which we evolved, not connecting with a more fluid and flowing environment and interacting with it directly as opposed to manipulating it from a disconnected distance, then we can have a sort of spiritual malaise over our consciousness, over our soul, that frequently gets people twisted and twisted and twisted up in knots, up in thoughts, up in neuroticism, up in an artificial way of being that isn't fundamentally harmonious with the nature of an animal. And connecting with nature and having a fundamental reverence and honor for the natural world, as this isn't just the place that humans haven't gotten to yet. This isn't just a place that we haven't figured out how to turn into a superior box yet. That this is the creation of divinity. This is our birthright. This is the place where we can connect once again with what every cell in our body knows that we are. And that to me is what nature represents. It's this incredible birthright, once again, that we still have access to. We can be incredibly grateful to, and that can nourish us as a fountain of energy and alignment and peace if we allow it to speak to us, if we allow it to resonate with our intuitions and what's beyond our conceptual minds, our thinking, our wanting, not wanting, our straight line boxes and our typical ways of being in civilization and in interacting with 8 billion other humans that have come to completely dominate this planet. And with nature, as opposed to in civilization, we can kind of step back and we can kind of escape from the cacophonous story or this web of entangled concepts, expectations, desires, and aversions, and the implicit belief that we should be in control of everything, the implicit belief that we must be living in this story, in this artifice that humanity has created. And we can connect prior to all of that to a direct awareness and a relationship with a natural world that is full of wonder and beyond our concepts, and something that is always ready to embrace us and to welcome us back with this mindset and this relationship that we are not separate from this thing in dominance over it, but rather we are still and always will be within our hearts, within every cell of our body, a part of nature. We are not separate from it within it. We are within it and of it. We are nature observing itself, nature communing with itself. And that kind of a reframe can be a tremendous antidote for much of the suffering, much of the contraction that we tend to find ourselves in this modern world. At least that's my thoughts, and that's why I'm incredibly grateful to get to reconnect with it frequently. What about you? What do you think about these things?
Man, your thoughts are so beautiful. Seeing nature as a source of rejuvenation and nourishment, and also um, connecting with your intuition, because obviously when we align with nature, nature has been part of our evolution from the beginning on, you know. We are part of nature, we come from nature, we are the universe looking upon itself with its own eyes and wondering and being fascinated about how beautiful it all is. And in this sense, seeing nature as a source with which we can reconnect and reconnect our energy to it, and draw energy from it, and regenerate again. And if we ever are anxious or whatever, if I'm anxious, if I'm sitting on the couch for too long, I haven't moved in a while, reconnecting with my own body through a short awareness exercise, even that helps a lot. Reconnecting with yourself, with your five senses, that alone helps a lot. And then what helps even better is if you take a walk in nature. There you can see all this diversity and this multifractal beauty of leaves and of plants and of animals around you. And you have an instant feeling of relaxation, rejuvenation, expansion, and you feel aligned with your inner nature again. Sitting in a cubicle all the time and going into the metro to drive home and then doing it all over again, this is a state of not being alive anymore. This is something in between the the inevitable death that will come to us, but this is not being alive. Aliveness requires this kind of volatility, which you mentioned as well. Different temperatures, going outside in a t-shirt when it's cold, or dressing for the weather slightly underdressed, and then you feel the elements and your body can react to it. We forget sometimes that we are a natural system, an organism which evolved in nature and therefore can handle the challenges which nature provides to us, like plunging into the cold or burning into the sun. And people avoid these stressors and wonder to themselves, why can't they handle more shocks, more diversity? But the thing is, it's a training, you know. And if you don't connect to nature very often, and you do not connect to your own body very often, and you handle it as like a machine which only needs to be oiled instead of an organism which needs the stressors and the volatility to really grow and face challenges which are bigger next time, um, then you'll find a bigger value in connecting to nature again, only through the physical, uh, through your physical body. So also intuition is part of nature, isn't it? Like our gut feeling, which evolutionary developed um, in a way to process information and give us information from the unconsciousness, which we don't quite really recognize through our senses, and therefore is a valuable source of information as well, which can, which obviously is the wisdom of the body, which over millions of years developed in ourselves. And reconnecting with nature to me also means honoring your intuition more again. And therefore, what I learned last year, going through some painful experiences and relationship breakups, whatever, is that I won't go in the future when there's no whole body yes. And this also connects to nature. Your gut feeling should not say no, or should not say, oh, be aware. Your heart, your emotional connection should not be not there. Your your reasoning should make sense. And only if these three things align with who you are and who you are as a human being, only then I would say, okay, I will go, I will enter this situation, I will enter this new kind of relationship, I will try this new thing out. And This is one of the ideas, yeah. Anything that comes to mind to you again?
Yeah, the point about intuition is so valid. And this is something that I didn't understand until probably a few years ago, something like that. I'm a very left-brained person by nature. And what is interesting is humans have invented robots that can do a lot of things, actually. We can have we can throw some stuff into ChatGPT and it can already write it better than 95 or maybe even 99% of people, the languaging. And that's what we've associated a lot as a species with intelligence, because it's something that makes humans unique from other animals. Even the intelligence of writing music, the intelligence of certain creative activities. These are all of a sudden, wow, this artificial intelligence is so good at it. But you know what a robot cannot do yet is walk through the woods for 10 minutes and go pick up a stick and bring it back, because it takes this incredible amount of actual flow in these various processes within our body and mind that oftentimes are below the explicit surface of our languager, of the talker within our brains, so much so, and the piece of our brains that we're tempted to frequently over-identify with and exclude everything else when we talk about who we are. This actual function of seeing in these many micro decisions, these micro judgments as we navigate through the woods, of seeing if this log is sturdy enough for us to step on, if this piece of leaves that's on this slope is likely to have a slick spot underneath where we're going to slip, if this tree that we're walking toward is likely to have thorns on it, if this spot that we're walking near the stream where it's at this angle and has this glisten of the light, and based off of what we felt in our last step, is likely to be mushy and our foot will go through it. If we have to duck underneath this tree and right before we have to rebalance and so we can step over on this spot. If we hear the sound and we're immediately subconsciously assessing if this is potential predator or prey, risk or opportunity, this taking in and flowing through our environment. Actually, this is something that we are very far from developing in any form of artificial intelligence. And many humans, I believe, think that this kinesthetic and panoramic flow that we experience when we are navigating a natural environment is something. Okay, if a squirrel can do it, it must not be that intelligent. If whatever, it must not be that intelligent. But the reality is, actually, what did our brains have to invest in to evolve and survive for hundreds of millions of years? It was this intuitive, emotional, reactive, instinctive navigation of the world. And so that's actually what we've invested a ton of our real estate within our brain toward, as opposed to just thinking that, oh yeah, the prefrontal cortex is everything. That is the apex of intelligence. Everything below that is sort of plumbing. It's not true. And it actually applies not just to a kinesthetic flow while we navigate a natural environment, but in fact, this intuition is a far deeper and greater intelligence with our relationships. We know and can see from others and definitely from our own experience how telling a story and getting wrapped around a narrative that our logical language mind wraps and tells in our heads gets us distorted. This is how I've made a lot of my worst decisions and how I've deluded myself into remaining in situations that did not serve me, and how I've trusted the wrong people, how I've gotten fooled by people. It's typically the language brain, the ego, the left brain, and my intuition, on the other hand, a lot of times when that is disagreeing with what my desire, ego, identity, talking part of my brain is saying, the intuition is always right. And the languager, when they disagree, is always wrong. This deeper intelligence is something that takes in the broader context, all of these things that are going on, all of the environment, all of the subtle body language that we're not consciously processing and labeling and identifying, but rather taking in the big picture in light of a deeper experience and our instinctive intelligence that's prior to these concepts that we've picked up, these artificial surface level labels that we can put on things one at a time in sequence without greater context and without a deeper, more intelligent, more intuitive algorithm. This intuition is something that we can refresh when we're in nature, that we can listen to when we're in nature, when we're not surrounded by the cacophony of other left brains yelling at us, screaming at us, and putting more and more concepts upon words, upon language into our ears, which ultimately is just the map. It's not the territory. These are just labels of things. They are not the things themselves. You cannot learn anything more about the color of this water bottle by calling it blue than you can by actually looking at it, by actually taking it in. And this is also the case for all of our senses. This is not just a simple surface level thing to point out. This is the nature of our reality is we're constantly tempted to live only in our map and never actually directly connect with our senses, with our intuition, with the territory, with the reality itself. And that is one of the most amazing recalibrations that nature can offer us is this direct feeling, this direct sensing, this direct connection with our environment, with what's around us, and with our senses, with our intuition. It can kind of allow some of the talking, um, thinking brain, the manager mind, to relax slowly, and listen to what we often forget is the deeper, more intelligent, more rich, more present, and more peaceful, more happy, more courageous, more compassionate part of our mind, which is our intuition, which is our soul, which is our consciousness, our awareness, our Holy Spirit. All these things are connected with each other. We have within us an inner teacher, an inner counselor, and it's extremely common and very tempting, and something that all of us are going to slip into at various times, is to drown it out by screaming over it, by having this web of interconnected identities, labels, words, narratives, stories, language that covers it up and puts the light under a bushel to where it no longer shines through us. It no longer illuminates our path, illuminates our minds, and clarifies our judgment. And to me, and in my experience, nature is one of the most powerful tools to recalibrate our mind, rebalance us, and to remind us who we really are, what the more intelligent part of us really is, and that we can connect with our experience, we can connect with our situations, our circumstances, our judgments, our decisions directly. We don't need it mediated by the left brain all the time. And both parts have their purpose, but we are frequently brought out of balance by the incredibly and increasingly artificial circumstances, society, environment that we as a species have built, and that we have built by the logic of the left brain many times, by the logic of the talker, the narrator, the languager. And by connecting with this thing that is intuitively, we can sense that this is alignment with who I am. This is where I'm meant to be. This is an environment that fits my body, my DNA, my intuitions, my mind, that flowing around this area of not straight lines, but actually a deeper balance, a deeper harmony that goes beyond simple symmetry. It can shock us into or coax us into a more natural and a wiser way of being. And that's something that I always am grateful for when I get out into nature. And I always need, frankly, when I go out into nature, is this reminder to have a greater balance and a recalibration within my own mind and how I navigate the world and how I view my relationship of connection versus separation of myself and others and myself and the environment and myself and the world. And so that's a lot of the lessons that I find nature frequently reminds me and blesses me with, and what I'm actually looking forward to getting once again this afternoon when I go on a nice hike. What are your thoughts around these things?
Well, great thought that really nature recalibrates you towards feeling yourself better, towards listening to the intuition more clearly. And also, what we mentioned is that the evolutionary aspect of it, like the many cycles of iterations, unbelievably many cycles of iterations have been um, gone through, and natural systems, like even a squirrel, developed in a way that it can climb trees so efficiently like no one else can. And obviously, because over the cohort and over the time, so many squirrels of the cohort like lost their life and did not procreate because they had not quite the advantage which the other squirrels, which now we see today, had. And this is a very beautiful aspect of it because now we can, as human beings, try to reverse engineer nature in its evolutionary approach and see, okay, I want to build a robot. How do I do that? A robot that climbs tree most effectively and most efficiently. How do I do that? Oh, I look at the squirrel. I look into nature and see what I can learn and see what I can find. And therefore, oh, I see the joints and the movement. There's a special shape, and therefore I try to build a robot exactly like nature did it. Um, and therefore, you can use this age-old wisdom just by looking at it and trying to copy it and trying to solve challenges um, which you face right now. And this aspect of engineering, I guess, is called biomimetics, like um, trying to meme biological systems. Like even if you have an organizational problem and now you look at an anthill, oh, it's a superorganism. Oh, how does it communicate? Oh, you smell. Oh, interesting. How is the work division in this system, and so on and so on. So you can nowadays just do some biomimetic research and try to look at biological systems through a lens of a question or a challenge which you face in your business right now or in life or whatsoever. So obviously there is a lot we can learn just from observing nature, like Frank Lloyd Wright said. Okay, study it, love it, and it will never fail you. Because yeah, if you find that these systems have survived for such a long time and still have the ability to survive and move effectively in a complex and ever-changing environment, then you can derive the principles by which they work and get some insights about, okay, how could you change your system or your organization or your organism whatsoever so that you achieve a similar result just through copying what already there is. So this is a rich resource of wisdom, and this also we understand intuitively if we take a walk in nature, and therefore looking at this vastness of life and how life has in itself, on itself enough. Like Marcus Aurelius put it as well, nature is so resourceful and has on itself enough. The old parts die off and they get reused into the new system. Like when a rainforest does not have much soil. It just lives on itself, you know. The parts that decay flow directly back into the system again. So nature has on itself enough. And that is also a point because we as individuals are not at all important to how nature works. But we as a cohort, we are a different kind of system. So this is also a little bit ruthless, but it is what it is. This is nature. Nature has on itself enough. The individual is not important, but the system, the whole. So we, as individual parts, can die off for the benefit of the whole system. When we do a stupid error, other people can watch how we did this stupid error and from now on avoid it. So we helped the whole system um, and contributed to its evolution. And this sense of diminished self, which you feel when you walk into nature, it's also a really great reminder and a kind of cosmic insignificance therapy, which really helps to not take yourself too seriously, uh, connect with life in a direct manner, and therefore live a less anxious and more fulfilled life as well. Do you have any further thoughts on this, Peter?
Yeah, well put, my friend. Nature is the best antidote I know to the feeling of delusion and separation that plagues most of us much of the time. So I'm incredibly grateful for these reminders and more than anything, grateful to have the opportunity to get outside and to connect with a more intuitive and more flow statey way of being. And that's something that I'm very excited to get into today for a few hours, and um, something that I'm going to bring even more intentionality and more awareness into after this conversation, and feeling how it can rejuvenate the intuition and nourish the mind. So I look forward to that. Wonderful talking to you as always, my friend. I appreciate you very much, and looking forward to talking more next week.
Appreciate you as well, my man. Thank you for the talking. And may we find connection, rejuvenation, and peace when we walk into nature, and a deep sense of belonging to our natural environment and our nature and our core of our beings as well.
No doubt,
See
no
you
doubt.
soon, man.
See you next time. Appreciate you. Take care.
Appreciate you.